Hi everybody, Jimmy DeYoung, and welcome to Prophecy Today video. I recently had a conversation with Dr. John Morris. He is the president of the Institute for Creation Research and a man who has made 13 trips to Mount Ararat looking for Noah's Ark. In our conversation, he questioned the validity of the recent report about the latest discovery of Noah's Ark, said he would get back to us after he does a bit more investigation. We'll have that right here on Prophecy Today video. I must remind you that Jesus, in his Olivet Discourse, did confirm Noah, the ark, and the flood. That's found in Matthew chapter 24, verses 37 to 39. What preceded that statement about as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man, were signs for the second coming of Jesus Christ, found in the Olivet Discourse recorded in Matthew chapter 24. In my conversation with Dr. Morris, there was a picture in the news media of, this filmmaker from Hong Kong in a chamber of the ark himself. Is that total subterfuge?
I saw that video, and it is really stunning. But there are some things that just don't ring true. In fact, they asked me to be a part of this expedition. In fact, after they came back, they asked me to be with them as they made their press release. And I see this evidence. I watched the video. I saw the photographs. I said, I can't go to the wall on this. It's just not the kind of thing that could prove it to a skeptic. What they have is that the Chinese group, they're not scientists, they're not mountain climbers, they're filmmakers, and they don't really understand how to document something, or they don't have the discretion really to see through a deception if there is one. They have contracted with a Turkish mountain climber over there who is known to be a charlatan, and I think that's what's happened. He's pulled the wool over their eyes. And he had built this little small chamber that he took them in, and it is some wood up there. I don't know how else to say. It's wood, and yet there are several things about it that just don't look like what we have always thought the Ark of Noah would look like. But then there were some other photographs, some still photographs. The photographs were only of him in this wooden structure, and they didn't see that part of it, and I think that's a fraud. I think it's a fraud. I would love to be. I've been praying for 40 years that the ark would be found. I'm not against this thing. I give them every benefit of the doubt, but I got to tell you, I'm also a scientist, and I want to see evidence, and I have not yet seen it.
Dr. John Morris, indeed, deception is a precursor to the return of Jesus Christ, and it helps sets the stage for the Antichrist to come on the scene. In conversations that we've had here on Prophecy Today video, you've heard Dr. Rob Congdon say that the European Union, most likely the infrastructure for the revived Roman Empire, which will bring forth the Antichrist, but deception is a necessity when the Antichrist does come on the scene. Had a conversation with Bob Maginnis. He says wars will continue as evidenced by the report on an extended war between Iran and Israel, and he talked about the military exercises between Turkey and Syria. They send some kind of a signal.
You do exercises to send a signal, and those signals are being heard, I think, loudly in Jerusalem and in Washington, that the Turks under the current government of Erdogan are suggesting that they're going toward the Islamic model and perhaps even friendly with Iran, given that Syria is a proxy. So this is very disconcerting, and all this supposedly came about because of Operation Cast Lead, which was, of course, the Israeli incursion into Gaza in response to all the missile bombardments coming out of there. Right now, of course, Iran, and it will be years before it has a ballistic missile-launched atomic weapon, though I think inevitably it will at this rate, given the lack of resilience on the West. And so any exchange with Israel will be with non-nuclear ballistic missiles and also via its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and of course we know about the large buildup of armaments in Lebanon under the guise of Hezbollah with the assistance of Damascus. So it would be a protracted exercise, I think, and it would really cripple long-term, without U.S. assistance, Israel's capability of withholding its enemies. Iran, though, doesn't have a lot of forces right next to Israel, but it could easily, and it has the Revolutionary Guard in the past up along the Bekaa Valley, as well as inside Gaza doing some training. So any exercise of war or tensions that involve the two would be protracted, and I tend to agree with that particular part of the analysis.
Bob Maginnis also reported to us about Iraq's election being prolonged, reminding us that Iraq today is biblical Babylon of yesterday with a prophetic significance in the future. But Bob says that what's happening right now is important to watch as well.
Well, politics being what it is, and even in the new democracy of Iraq, it's very troubled. Former Prime Minister Alawi, who garnered 91 of the 325 seats in the parliament, and therefore should have the opportunity of forming a government. The incumbent, Maliki, has complained, sought a recount, and also has gone to what we call the De-Baathification Commission and said, look, you need to check the qualifications of some of those in the Iraqi Alawi's camp who won seats. And so they essentially will try to eliminate some of those that were elected because of their associations with the former regime of Saddam Hussein. All of this is causing a great deal of consternation, and I think could really ratchet out of control into sectarian violence. And so Alawi has called for some sort of international interim government to be imposed, but the UN refuses. The U.S. has been very hesitant about that. It's hard to know how this is going to turn out. Keep in mind, the last time it took 6 months, back in 2005, to form a government. This one, if you disenfranchise the Sunnis, I do believe could return to those earlier days and could become very violent.
Colonel Bob Maginnis, and let me remind you again what I said in the introduction to Bob's report on the Iraqi elections. Iraq today is biblical Babylon, which is talked about in Revelation chapter 18. It is the commercial headquarters, the economic center of the world, and what leads up to the Antichrist controlling the economies of the world has to be the receiving of the mark of the beast or the 666 or whatever, an identification mark talked about in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verses 16 and 17, where the mark will be on the forehead or the back of the hand for all of those who want to be able to buy and sell. Well, I've got to tell you, as it was in the days of Noah and all of the information, the signs that Jesus Christ gave to his disciples there on the Mount of Olives on Monday of Passion Week some 2,000 years ago, they are helping us to understand the times in which we're living. Jesus also talked about not only deception and wars or rumors of wars, but he spoke about the Antichrist, which we brought to your attention just a moment ago. The temple. In chapter 24, verse 15, Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, that's talking about a temple on the Temple Mount in the city of Jerusalem. I want to tell you there are many other signs prevalent today, giving us the evidence that Jesus Christ is about to come. He concludes his Olivet Discourse by making the statement, the generation who sees these things happening. What things? Well, everything we've been talking about, the signs that he gave to his disciples there 2,000 years ago. We're seeing them come better into focus right now. And he said, Jesus said, that is the generation, the ones who see these things happening, who will be alive at his second coming. But remember, before the second coming, and Matthew 24 is talking about the second coming, not the rapture, but the rapture does take place before 7 years, in fact, before Jesus Christ comes back. That rapture, with everything we've said on this telecast today, could happen at any moment. And having said that, nothing left for me to say, except let's keep looking up until